This is the issue, and I am the ghetto man. This is a special addition to the issue today. Why? Because of the false flag that just took place in Syria. The president now is in a position. Now he has to make a decision of whether or not he's going to bring troops into Syria or not. Anyway, that brought me to thinking about the power to declare war. In the United States, who has the power to declare war against a foreign nation? Who has the power to commit the lives of the men and women in our Army, Navy, and Air Force to an armed confrontation? Is it the president? Is it Congress? Well, we'll be right back. In the United States, only Congress has the power to declare war. Now, this is not an argument that's open for debate. It was settled over 200 years ago and has been reaffirmed over and over by the Supreme Court of the United States. There is not one word in the Constitution that grants that power to any other body of government than Congress. It runs to Congress only. The United States Supreme Court ruled that by the Constitution, Congress alone has the power to declare a national or foreign war. The Constitution confers on the president the whole executive power. He has not the power to initiate or declare a war either against a foreign nation or a domestic state. If a war be made by invasion of a foreign nation, the president is not only authorized but bound to resist force by force. He does not initiate the war, but is bound to accept the challenge without waiting for any special legislative authority. And that can be found in 2 Black 635. The executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America. The general scope of this executive power is declared in an oath prescribed to him in the same article. That he will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. He is, under all circumstances, to respect and abstain from exercising the power confided in the legislature and the judiciary. The office of the President of the United States has 2 functions. 1, the title to be Commander-in-Chief of the Army, Air Force, and Navy on the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into active service of the United States. Now, what's interesting here is that it mentions in the first one, it mentions the title to be Commander-in-Chief of the Commander-in-Chief. Anyway, the only time the president can becomes to Commander-in-Chief, the only time is when Congress has a formal declaration of war. Until that formal declaration of war has been issued by Congress, the president is just the president. And once the Congress declares war, then he becomes the Commander-in-Chief of the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, and whatever. Okay, 2, the power and duty to take care of the laws be faithfully executed. Under the first head, The commander of the Army, Air Force, and Navy. Now I'm putting Air Force in there. This was actually written before we had an Air Force, so I'm throwing it in there. Of course, when the Air Force came into being, of course the president would be under command after there's been a declaration of war by Congress. Anyway, the command of the Army, Air Force, and Navy, and the militia in active service. A vague and anonymous authority is asserted, which is called the war power. If this means anything more than the command of the Army, Air Force, Navy, and militia in actual service, in time of war, insurrection, invasion, or apprehended invasions, or for the execution of the laws, then it is denied that such power exists under the Constitution. It does not involve, but rather does it necessarily deny power in the executive to change, suspend, or repeal the law. He is to act as commander-in-chief, not as legislator or emperor. To say that he can declare war because an event of war commands the Army, Air Force, Navy, and militia in service when war is declared, and that's very important, when war is declared under the Constitution is absurd. By the Constitution, the power to declare war is granted to Congress, and by this grant is excluded from the competency and authority of the other two coordinate branches of the government. This can be found in the Articles of Confederation, Article 9, the Federalists, number 2341, Tucker's Blackstone, page 271. Constitutional law, and let's see, that's under Constitutional Law 329, three-story, Constitutional Book 3, Chapter 31. Now, a modern idea upon the subject is that under the law of nations, and that we would be referring to the United Nations today, as a state of war with all its incidents may exist without a declaration of war, and as a condition of hostilities may arise in such a manner as to require the force of the nation to be used in the recess of Congress. Therefore, the executive may accept a war, and the country may be involved in all the consequences of war without the consent of Congress. So what they're saying here is that if we have a body like the United Nations and they go ahead through some sort of a order, decide that the United States should go to war, well, the courts have said this is denied. You can't do that, okay? And that's exactly what all the presidents have been doing since World War II ended. The true construction of the Constitution in this respect is that the question of war or peace, a question so momentous and its consequences so ramified, is a question to be determined by Congress, passed by both houses and approved by the executive. The Constitution had no reference to the question whether war under the law of nations, the United Nations, can exist without a declaration of war. It had no reference to any supposed distinction between the power to declare war and the supposed power to accept war. It treats the substance, not the form, of the results, not the antecedents. It provides a condition under all circumstances to the state of war. It declares that the United States shall not be involved in war except by act of Congress. And these are the prize cases, 1862, 67 U.S. 635. Okay, now, looking back in recent history, the last 25 years or so, the biggest violator of this was George Bush Sr. I mean, this guy, he operated completely under the UN, completely ignored anything in the Constitution regarding who has the power to declare a war. And then that was carried on with his son, Bush W. He was involved in the same thing, constantly, I want to say declaring war, but that's not what he was doing. He was just, yeah, I guess he was declaring war. Obama, the same thing. I mean, Obama launched airstrikes and military raids in at least 7 countries: Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Yemen, Somalia, and Pakistan. Now, based on the United States Supreme Court's rulings, the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, which clearly states in Article 1, Section 8, the Congress shall have the power to declare war. Since there hasn't been a declaration of war since World War II, but it just recently, all the wars that we're involved in now, none of them has had a formal declaration of war by an act of Congress. And because of this, the president, as I said earlier, is not the commander-in-chief. Now, the president that we have today, President Trump, he must bring all the troops home, every single one of them. The president does not have, right now as we speak, he does not have the authority to prosecute any war on anybody. He needs to bring the troops home. He needs to end these wars immediately, and end them only because they're illegal. There has been no declaration of war by an act of Congress. You can't go shipping our troops all around the world and bombing cities and killing people when there is no declaration of war. The president, and this is why this is a special addition to the issue, because it's a current event. The president must force Congress to formally declare war on every nation that we are unlawfully occupying at this moment. Everything Congress, the courts, and the president is doing right now is in violation of the U.S. Constitution. And this shit's got to stop. Now, I told you when I first started doing these shows that I'm a political atheist, and I'm not going to take sides on who's right or who's wrong. I don't care who's in office. Right now, you're going to get as a Demo Republican Nazi, but Bush is obviously he's not a Demo Republican Nazi, because both the party, one party with two names, is just going after him tooth and nail, and just trying to make everything he's doing so difficult that it's obvious that there's something really sinister behind all this. And as a political atheist, I said I will take a look at what anybody's doing in government, whatever my servants are doing, and I'm going to take a look at it. And if it doesn't meet constitutional muster, then I'm going to say something about it. And that's why I'm making this special edition. Because right now, if President Trump goes into Syria or continues to prosecute all of these unconstitutional, undeclared wars, he hasn't got my support at all. Because he's breaking the law. He's violating the Constitution. He's just carrying on the same bullshit that the Demo Republican Nazis have been doing since I was born. Like I said, I don't care who's in office. If you're not doing your job, then I'm going to call you on it. I am the Ghetto Man, and thank you for watching. All right, I have an addendum here. I just had a message come in on my cell phone. Actually, it was coming in when I was recording. Probably heard the thing. Anyways, it says U.S. military launches missile at air base in Syria. Okay, there you go. President Trump is now violating the Constitution and is acting completely outside of his authority. He has no authority to launch a missile on anybody. There has not been a formal declaration of war by an act of Congress. Therefore, the president, as I speak, is committing high treason against the United States. He has no authority to do anything like this without a declaration of war by an act of Congress. With that, this is the Ghetto Man. I'm pissed off.
Woo!